The other one that was missing in the bus, you know.
Testing 1, 2. point. Okay, point. What God not say? Okay, point. Pick a point. No, but he is smart. You play the words. You play the words. God and I spent 4 hours there at the topic on the phone. We spent 4 hours on the phone. God and I. Can you imagine that? We talked about everything under the sun. That was so beautiful. I wish I'd recorded that because I could write a thesis on it. Yeah, I think it's coming. The chicken is coming home to roost now because all this pressure is to get back in the days. So you will after me now to start writing. So some of what I'm going to say tonight, they want me to do an article and talk about. Looking at the socio-political and cultural impact of Cadence Lypso. But it's broader than just political and social. We'll talk about some of the music, some of the marketing things, market issues, the demand for it, challenges, and so on. So yes, so when I told them that I was doing this politics, they say, "Oh, great, this is the subject." So I have to do an abstract over the weekend and send to them, and I have to get it. No, I'm sending past them. There are a few paragraphs I'm going to dedicate to a certain, personality, artist, in terms of influence on women, gender. I think you know. I'm talking about one. It's one really. It's one.
I want to see what you're studying.
In fact, I have to talk about then and now to make the link. And in my thesis about you, I want to connect with your role as educator, mentor, and now nurturer. So that is the thesis.
Okay.
Gordon.
Next week I speaking on that. Next week I have to dissect that.
What is the next topic?
Next week all I know I dissected the music next week. I don't know who else speaking. But sometimes it's good for somebody else to do it.
I'd like to say good evening, everybody. I'd like to be responded to. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Who is there, Ma? You? I should have known because. Ready? Let me say it one more time. Good evening, everybody. It really is an honor to be here But before I say anything else, I'd like to invite Delma Daniel to lead us in the national anthem. Delma.
Isle of beauty, isle of splendor, isle to all so sweet and fair. All must surely gaze in wonder at thy gifts so rich and rare. Rivers, valleys, hills, and mountains, all these gifts we do extol. Healthy land, soul, like all fountains, giving cheer that warms the soul.
Thank you so very much, Delma Daniel. We would like at this time to invite Deacon Alvin Knight to lead us in prayer. Can we stand again?
I read from Matthew's 25th chapter, the parable of the talent. It's a parable that tells the story of a master who gave varying talents to his servants according to their ability, and returns after some time and asks for an account. So I take up the story with the master's return. After a long time, the master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his talent. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 talents came forward with 5 more and said, "Master, you gave me 5 talents to invest, and I've earned 5 more." The master was full of praise. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling small things, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who had received the 2 talents came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents to invest. I have earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling small things, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." Then the servant with the 1 talent came and said, "Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money back." But the master replied, "You good-for-nothing servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money at the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then he ordered, "Take the talent from this servant and give it to the one with 10. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have abundance. But from those who are unproductive, even what little they have will be taken away." I pray in the name of the Father, who is the master and giver of gifts, his Son, who teaches us to use his gifts wisely, and the Holy Spirit, who gives wisdom to know how to use the gifts to the benefit of mankind. Holy Trinity, 3 in 1, mighty God, who lavishes us with gifts. All we have comes from you and belongs to you. We are only stewards of these gifts. Help us, we pray, to use these gifts entrusted to us for the good of others, and so return them to you with interest, so that on the day of reckoning, we will hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Now enter the kingdom prepared for you from the beginning of time." Good and gracious Father, bless tonight's proceedings, those who participate and those who planned it. May it bring you glory and honor as we use our talents in this field of music for the greater good of mankind. We ask this in the name of Jesus, our Savior. Amen and amen.
Thank you very much, Deacon Knight. I'd like to acknowledge all the partners who have come together and who are in the process of giving us a great gift. The gift that we call the Cadence Lypso month. It's our birthday, those of us who like cadence, like me, and those who don't even know sometimes that they're dancing to the cadence. It is our birthday, and we're going to be celebrating. And that is why I expect you to smile, even while Gregory Rabes, Tim Durand, Sobers Esprit, whom I taught, Gordon Henderson, and Danielle Betis. Bonsoir, Danielle. Even as they expound on their experiences and their thoughts, let's continue smiling because it's celebration time. I have a brother here who says we should always smile because we know about the joy of the Lord. And you heard Alvin Knight. He asked us to remember who is the giver of the gift. So even while we do that, we know that we have to keep the smiles. That's why I put on lipstick even behind a mask, because COVID can't prevent me from putting some lipstick. Okay, now that I've broken the ice, I would like to say that I'm really very happy to be here. And I want to thank Wadix for pulling that particular aspect of my talent out, because it would have been nice just to sit somewhere and let somebody else run this. But Wadix is the wa nowadays, and he has decided that I have to do the moderating. I won't tell you how somebody pronounces that word. At this point, I'm going to go straight away to Mr. Gordon Henderson, a very, very special gentleman to me. He is one of my husband's best friends, and he is the one who, they say by accident, well, let us have him, he himself, give us the story as to how did Cadence Lypso begin by sheer accident 8,000 kilometers from Dominica. Nautical miles? Oh, that's what I should have said. You see, I taught him well. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we can give Gordon a round of applause until he appears on that screen. Oh, he's there. Let's give it to him. Hi, Gordon.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief tonight. It has been abundantly repeated that Cadence Lypso began one night in 1974 in Paris, France, when the Dominican group Exile One was encouraged to creolize their predominantly English Caribbean repertoire so that the French Antillean patrons would dance. What the band did was adopt certain elements from the Haitian compas dialect and Cadence Lypso. These were the dominant dance music forms at the time. Exile One combined these forms with Caribbean calypso. Exile One could have called the fusion Compalypso, but chose Cadence Lypso because the word cadence was more universal. Cadence happens to be a couplet. It exists in both French and English. That, in a nutshell, is the short version. How did Cadence Lypso begin? As a musical genre, as a movement, as a brand. This would be a much longer story that probably deserves a series, a dedicated series. I will therefore stop here and will answer any questions whenever you have them for me. Thank you so much.
I think Gordon deserves a bigger round of applause. Even by virtue of his appearance. Gordon, thanks. I don't know what time it is in your neck of the woods, like they say, but Gordon is always present, and that is fantastic, you know. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I made one error already. I welcomed you in my own way, but I forgot to ask the head of the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Ms. Kimone Joseph, to do it in her way. Can she have a round of applause as she approaches?
Good evening to everyone, those who are here with us and those who are joining us online. I would like to acknowledge the panelists who are here, and of course, Deacon Alvin Knight, the manager of DBS Radio, Mr. Cecil Joseph, as well as Ulson Matthew, who is from the Cultural Division. I just want to and Dion is here too, Dion Henderson, who is our neighbor at the Alliance Française. Good evening to all guests, those who will be performing this evening. I am looking forward to that. Good evening to you as well. Indeed, it is an honor for me to welcome all of you to the UWI Open Campus Dominica. We are honored to be part of the collaboration that has brought this Cadence Lypso month to life. We join with Creole Heartbeat, Alliance Française, DBS Radio, and Goen Global Environment in showcasing this homegrown music of ours that is such a rich part of our cultural heritage. This evening's panel discussion is one of 4 that has been planned for this month, and tonight we will focus on the origins of the music. Our presenters for this evening, Mr. Gordon Henderson, Mr. Tim Durand, Daniel Betis, Gregory Rabes, and Sobers Esprit, will start us off with our series, and we anticipate a lively discussion afterwards. It is certainly a pleasure for us to be here as UWI, and this will be a panel discussion with a difference because we will have live performances in between. UWI has been working closely with Creole Heartbeats on a number of initiatives this year, and we think that the relationship that has been formed is a good one. We applaud the efforts and hard work of Mr. Leroy Wadix-Charles and his team. On behalf of the other collaborators who are in the room this evening, I say to Wadix that we are committed to be part of this cultural preservation effort. Once again, I welcome everyone, and I thank you for being here.
You see what we would have missed? Thank you so very much. We feel so much warmer at this point, and I think that discussion will be lively. Sobers is already getting excited, and so is Tim. Okay. So Gordon has already given us his tidbit, and I'm sure you have jotted down a few questions for him. No, should I allow him to sit? Should I have him come forward? Straight away. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm following the orders of Alvin Knight, my big brother. Yeah. Oh, brother. Maybe I should sing then. I could try to sing, right? Okay. Okay, so what do I do? The next presenter? Okay, Alvin, I'll have to obey them, eh? Okay, all right, so the second presenter, ladies and gentlemen, is Tim Durand. We know him as somebody who has lots of experience, not only at DBS and MARPIN and now DNO, but also a gentleman who pens a good calypso and a few other songs that he used to play on guitar when I used to know him as a young guy. I'm putting all the secrets out tonight. But we will not ask him to play the guitar this evening. We're going to ask him to respond to this question. How did Cadence Lypso grow from that night in France to become a Dominican expression? Tim Durand, let's give him a round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Should I follow protocol? I want to say a very good evening to all of the guests, the dignitaries, you know, and all important guests here. Dr. Kimon Joseph of UE, Deacon Alvin Knight, all other persons who have turned out to witness the discussion this evening, the media. I know people tend to leave out the media sometimes and forget them. I am, being a media person, I want to ensure this doesn't happen. And everybody listening and watching at home this event this evening. The topic I was given is how did Cadence Lypso grow from that night in France to become a Dominican expression? And for those of you who are wondering what that night in France, or before, if you had seen the topic and you were not sure what they meant by that night in France, then you heard Gordon a short while ago explain to you what happened, that eventful night in France. I also want to point out that in the program, in the little introduction given about me in the program, I did indicate that I hosted a program at DBS, or was it DBS or Radio Dominica? But anyway, one of them. I worked both at Radio Dominica and DBS. And the name of the program was Genesis and Beyond. But I see somebody has written Genes and Beyond, so I just wanted to correct that. Okay, and you would understand where the term Genesis came from in the context of Cadence Lypso. Okay, so how did Cadence Lypso grow from that night in France to become a Dominican expression? This presentation is making a number of assumptions. I was hoping that Gordon would have gone into a little bit more detail about what happened, because I wrote it in the way to kind of, you know, continue from where I expected Gordon to reach. But he didn't, you know, he didn't go very far. So I will just take it from where, you know, I've started. We've already heard from Gordon that he and Exile One created Cadence Lypso. And what I expected him to say was that it impacted in a big way, so that it set, you know, the pace, it set the mode for the continuation of what has been over the years, perhaps one of the most impactful pieces of music coming from Dominica. But then when the music was created, after, you know, it was created and it began to impact, Gordon Henderson, who, as you've heard, was one of the key people behind the creation of that music, he quickly positioned himself to take advantage of the interest that the new music was generating by learning about the business of music and how to read, write, and speak French properly in order to be able to make effective use of the media. The point here is that at the time in France and in the French territories, to be able to get on the media, on radio, television, you had to be able to speak French properly. They would not allow anything else. So if you were in that country trying to promote something and you couldn't speak French, you were at a definite disadvantage. So Gordon knew that, and he took the opportunity. He ensured that he learned how to speak French properly, how to read and write French properly, and he knew then that he would be in a position to utilize the media more effectively. Now, Mac Marie, whose name you've already heard here this evening, a Dominican music producer, very, very well known for his position as the husband of Ophelia, and copyright expert. He wrote in an article for the Cultural Division, and I quote, "With the help of this record producer, Henry Debs, Gordon's approach," or that should be with the help of his record producer, Henry Debs, "Gordon's approach was so successful that in no time the public in Martinique and Guadeloupe abandoned Haitian music in favor of Dominican music, with record producers and concert promoters falling over each other to sign up Dominican bands. These gave rise to Gramax, Liquid Eyes, Midnight Groovers, Mammut, and many others." But Gregory Wabes will tell you a little more about that in his presentation, because he's going to look at those bands, the actual bands that contributed to the spread of Cadence Lypso music. In the meantime, Exile One had moved to Paris and was signed to Barclay Records, the first West Indian group performing in Creole to be signed by a major record company. The advent of Cadence Lypso created an environment in Guadeloupe and France where one could make a reasonable living out of playing music. That's where it all started. That's how all musicians were going to get involved. The people in those islands were receptive to music and art in general. This reflected a feature of French society which was prevalent in the French territories. So when Gordon and other members of Exile One came up with that new genre of music, record producers in Guadeloupe and Martinique began to take note, recognizing the potential to sell records in a market that was quite large, comparatively speaking, and we say compared to Dominica, Guadeloupe, and Martinique, you know, it's pretty large. If you compare them to the United States, they're not that large, but comparatively speaking, for our musicians, that was a large market. So a record producer could make money. Going to dances was also a popular thing. Lots of people went to dance every weekend, and during the summer holidays, dances were held every day, except Monday. So boy, the dances galore. I mean, you couldn't run out of places to play. There were some big dance halls that could hold up to 3,000 people. So music, especially dance music, could be quite lucrative. Moreover, there was a system of star recognition in those French islands where people took this concept of stardom very seriously. One could become a star and receive treatment akin to what stars in the United States get. So the star business in Guadeloupe and Martinique, you know, in the French territories was a big thing. So if you played your cards right, and you made some impact, you could become a star, and that would be good for you. We'll find out later on how that helped groups like Gordon Henderson, Gramax, and Our Lady of Song. At that time, though, our recording industry in Dominica was practically non-existent. I think the earlier recordings coming out of Dominica were done overseas, like Swinging Stars, I remember, and if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, was done in Trinidad, Sifla Mutai in Barbados, but that was many years ago. We didn't really have any good recording studios. Our recording industry had not yet developed, you know. So record producers or people involved in the recording business from Martinique and Guadeloupe provided opportunities for Dominican musicians to record in those countries. Some of those bands that were brought over by the Martinican and Guadeloupean producers were not necessarily very popular in Dominica, but they were keen to grab the opportunity to play their part in playing and promoting the music. For example, how many of you here of my generation, except that you're from the village of Salisbury and environs, are familiar with the band, or were familiar at the time with the band Mammut, before they recorded Mama Margerese in Guadeloupe? I don't know, but I didn't know about them until that record came out. And what happened, that song went on to become very popular. It was what was referred to in the French islands as a star-making hit. In La Réunion, for example, one of the French territories, that song was very big. And La Réunion is a country that, I mean, it is far, you know? You have a long distance to travel to get there. And to secure a gig in La Réunion, you would have to have something to offer. They're not going to pay their money, you know, to transport you to La Réunion if you are not able to help them recoup the money they spent. And so Mahmoud's song was so big that alone was enough to secure them a gig in La Réunion. So, but nobody knew about Mahmoud and Dominica. But that is what was happening at the time, that musicians had the opportunity to go to Guadeloupe and Martinique, and the record producers in those two territories were very aggressive. You know, they would come and scout out bands and take them across to record. And when the records came out, that is when we found out, hey, that there was such a band, no? Like, you know, that kind of thing. So, as I said, you know, that Mahmoud song became very popular. But that Mahmoud experience, as I said, could also apply to a number of other Dominican groups that recorded popular Cadence Lypso songs in Martinique and Guadeloupe. It speaks to the receptiveness of the people in those countries to Cadence Lypso music, and is one of the factors which caused the music to flourish in that market. Cadence Lypso was created by Dominicans, played primarily by Dominicans, at least for some time, but it was done entirely for export, as there was not a market for the music in Dominica. So Henri Deb and Henri Deb or Debs, anyway, Henri Debs, right? Henri Debs, from Guadeloupe, and another gentleman from Martinique called Nairado. They were the two more prominent, you know, record producers who sought out Dominican musicians to record. And they were recruiting Dominican bands to make records for the Cadence Lypso market in the French territories. Naked Feet recorded with Nairado in Martinique. And those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Naked Feet was a band I belonged to, right, in the 70s. So I can understand if you don't know what I'm talking about, right? But no, we're not too bad, you know, really. I mean, we're fairly popular enough, you know, yeah. And, yeah. Or in the other people in the band? Yes. Okay, there was yours truly, Tim Durand, there was Pat Aaron, Kelly, the Ghost Williams, Ras Kelly, Glenn John, he's out of the public eye now, but he was a very, you know, dynamic singer and stage, you know, frontman for the band. Linford John, his brother, who went on to play with Wafrikai and Bill O'Mend, was also part of the band. There was a gentleman called Corbo. Those of you who know Cora Richards, right, her brother was a drummer, and there's another guy called Roger Aaron. Randy Aaron, deceased, was also part of the band. There was a time, I mean, we had a 7 brass lineup, you know. Oh yeah, man, yeah, Roy Chillingford, Lapo. I mean, tremendous keyboardist, man. Those of you who have heard the song Diabla, you hear the wonderful keyboard work that is done on that. Roy Chillingford is responsible for that. And me, well, I was just there, you know, in the band. Okay. All right, so prompted by offers of recording arrangements with record producers such as Debs, who we've already mentioned, Nairado and others, a number of Dominican bands converged on those two French islands, where, as we've already established, there was a vibrant market for Cadence Lypso music. Although not all those records were financially successful, there were enough success stories to continue to provide an incentive for record producers to keep producing Dominican music, which in turn provided opportunities or created opportunities for those bands to perform at clubs, dances, and other events. Because dance music was the thing, yeah, in Guadeloupe and Martinique. That is what would get you a crowd. As I indicated earlier on, there was a lot of dances taking place, you know? All right, so but many of those bands didn't achieve any significant success. you know. They grabbed the opportunity. They were grateful for the opportunity. They embraced the opportunity to go to Guadeloupe and Martinique to perform. But it wasn't really a paradise, you know. There were many challenges. Some bands really guayed, you know. I remember, you know, Naked Feet, we spent, you know, I mean, we were given a place to stay. And it was a nice little place, nice little villa with a pool and everything. But we had problems feeding ourselves, you know. The money that we got from the gigs that we played would go towards food, you know. And sometimes if a lot of money didn't come in, boy, you had to struggle for food. So thankfully, there was this guy, Mango Long. I don't know if some of you here know him, you know. He had connections in Guadeloupe, and he would help us out, you know, use his connections to really get food for us, prepare food for us. And guys used to wait, man, expectantly, you know, for Mango Long to come, you know, with that food, you know. I have a story about Stumpy, but I won't give it to you all. Norman Dorival, you know the guy? Norman Dorival. I have a story, but I won't give it because I would have to get Stumpy's permission first to do that. Okay, so there were exceptions, of course, to that. We know that. A lot of the bands didn't make any money. They got the chance to go up and play and to make a record, and sometimes it turned out to be successful, other times it wasn't. But they nonetheless still, if we got an opportunity now to do that again, we probably would. Because there was more to making money and, say, promoting oneself or getting any benefits out of that for oneself. It was seen as part of a movement that was mounted to promote, to embrace and promote Cadence Lypso music. And we were happy to be part of that. Okay. So there were exceptions, eh? There were exceptions. Exile One, Gramax, you know, we know the stories of those bands. And to a lesser extent, bands such as Liquid Ice and Midnight Groovers. Liquid Ice had a good style. They made quite a few records. And if a record producer does a record for you and he goes on to do another one, it says then there was something good about the first one. He's not going to spend his money to do another record for you if the first one isn't good. So Liquid Ice, Midnight Groovers, you know, they also benefited. Because although the market was a large one in comparison to Dominica, as I said, and could only sustain 2 or 3 stars at a time, stars meaning people like Exile One, Gramax, they were referred to as stars, the big boys in the music, you know, and you couldn't have more than 2 or 3 of them in the market. It wasn't that big, you know, to sustain more. So for other bands to achieve that level, so to speak, they would have to displace those 2 bands. And I don't think anybody was able to do that. Okay, so let me just share this very quickly. McMurray was telling me, we had a conversation, there was some kind of rivalry between Exile One and Gramax, which was instigated by Nairado, who was using Gramax to create competition for the alliance of Exile One and Ari Debs, because Ari Debs was firmly in the corner of Exile One, and Nairado was the other, you know, competing producer, and he sort of created that rivalry between Gramax and Exile One, because, you know, basically he wanted Gramax to get a share of the market, so he too could benefit from that. And one of the areas of the music industry that those recording bands were not able to capitalize on at the time was that of copyright. They were not really making money from the sale of records, and most of them were not familiar with copyright matters, and so were not making any money from that source. It wasn't until Gordon Henderson opened that door through his association with French Copyright Society, SACEM. The other Dominican musicians would get the opportunity then to start earning royalties for their songs. So even then, when you were not making a lot of money from your gigs and you were not getting money from the sale of records, people couldn't get money for their songs because they didn't know about copyright. But despite the lack of financial success for those bands, and individually the music continued to impact collectively. The musicians themselves were still appreciative of the opportunity to make their contribution towards the promotion of something Dominican, and despite the challenges, they would still go to Guadeloupe if asked. No matter how much guay, but they would still, you know, grasp the opportunity. Just as the band era of Cadence Lypso music started to fade in the late 70s, a new Cadence Lypso star started to emerge. Dominica's Lady of Song, the First Lady of Creole, and La Grande Dame de la Musique Antillaise, Ophelia. Ophelia became Dominica's first Cadence Lypso female singer to achieve international star status. Gordon Henderson and Jeff Joseph had already walked that path, but Ophelia was the first female to achieve that level of recognition and success. We must not forget Janet Azuz, the mother of Dion, sitting right there, another Dominican female singer who made her mark in the Cadence Lypso arena, but did not achieve the same level of recognition and success that Ophelia did. But we must acknowledge that she did make a contribution, and remember her for that. Considered the godmother of Cadence, Ophelia toured widely in France and had concerts broadcast over much of the Francophone world. Her first recording was I, Dominique, which became an iconic anthem for Dominicans. Everybody here knows the song. And Ophelia's husband, Marc Marie, told me that Gordon played a significant role in getting that song recorded and introducing Ophelia to the French market. Ophelia, Gordon, and Jeff Joseph were able to keep Cadence Lypso, that Dominican expression that Wadix has so interestingly coined, alive and kicking as the band era of Cadence Lypso faded away. The cadence, or began to fade, I should say, after the number of bands that were playing Cadence Lypso in the French islands was diminishing, and the focus was shifting to individual acts or stars who did not require a band to accompany them during the live performances because they could use playback. Like somebody told me, Asa Banton is doing quite well now, because Asa is a one-man show. So you hear him all over the place. And the reason for that, that he can so more easily get gigs than the other bands like TK and WCK, is because he walks with his band in his back pocket, playback, okay? So that was beginning to evolve in the French market, that the bands were costly, and therefore singers, the promoters and the dance hall and club owners were looking for entertainers that they didn't have to spend too much money on, right? And that's when Ophelia came on the scene, and she exploited that. She took advantage of that situation. Yeah, she took advantage of it. And, it worked very beautifully for her. So Gordon was able to continue successfully as a solo act after Exile 1 broke up, and so too the late Jeff Joseph, the leader of Gramax. Ophelia, Gordon, and Jeff were able to keep Cadence Lypso, that Dominican expression, alive. Fitzroy Williams and Julie Morrill of Exile 1 also continued to perform as individual musicians. In fact, Gordon, I believe, produced an album for each of them under the Soul Tone label, which he owned. So that Dominican expression, Cadence Lypso, presented the opportunity for both Gordon and Ophelia to represent Dominica in a broader capacity than just artists. So that expression went beyond the music itself. It positioned Ophelia and Gordon to be able to represent Dominica other than as entertainers. Ophelia, for example, that beautiful song, I, Dominique, which the lyrics sort of focused on the turmoil that was occurring in the country. When it was played in Guadeloupe, and the Guadeloupeans have for years now been sort of toying with the idea of independence. Those of you who've been to Guadeloupe can explain that better than I. But they've never really, anyway, they have been looking at it, and it sort of evoked some emotional reaction in them, in that they saw themselves as facing challenges as well as, excuse me, as challenges that were included or expressed, I should say, in Ophelia's song. So they kind of identified with that, and every time she went to Guadeloupe, she would be asked to comment, on matters of politics. She wasn't playing politics, but they just wanted her opinion because they felt that she had so beautifully captured some of the very issues that they were facing in their society in her song. And so she was more than just a singer who was being interviewed. She was somebody with an opinion on matters that they wanted to hear. Gordon Henderson would go on to become the ambassador for the World Creole Music Festival. I mean, he had gained such international recognition that the natural course of action for the organizers of the World Creole Music Festival was to use Gordon's extensive reach internationally to promote the World Creole Music Festival. So essentially what I'm saying is their impact and their ability to represent Dominica had sort of transcended just the music. And so that is also what the Dominican expression, the Cadence Lypso, was able to do for us. Not just, put us on the map as having created the music and producing some wonderful musicians and songs, but it also provided the opportunity for us to be represented beyond and above just the music. Now, very quickly, on the local, there were two approaches, two ways in which the Dominican expression sort of evolved and manifested itself. One was what I just explained overseas, which was the major thing because that's where the music impacted the most, and that's where the people who went to play the music, wanted it to impact because that's where they earned a living. But also in Dominica, things were happening. Dominicans were responding very, I think, strongly to this Cadence Lypso music. They embraced it. I do not believe that one can think of any I can't remember any Dominican who had an issue with Cadence Lypso music. If somebody does, you can tell me. But when I played music on the radio and I played in the band, I do not remember anybody who had problems with Cadence Lypso music. It was embraced by the Dominican public. The songs received a tremendous airplay on the radio. It helped to encourage our Dominican musicians to grab the opportunities which were being given by French record producers and promoters, and to play for live audiences in Guadeloupe, Martinique, French Guiana, and other places. Cadence Lypso music was played everywhere, on the radio, in the dance halls, clubs, events, parties, everywhere. We were moving towards independence at the time, and people, it kind of fit in very nicely with the mood at the time, because people were beginning to feel, to think independence, and the fact that we had our own music now added to that sense of pride and, identity. And so, as was pointed out in my intro, I also hosted a radio show that was dedicated to promoting Cadence Lypso, and that was Genesis and Beyond, by playing the music and telling the stories of the musicians who played it. What emerged in Dominica was a movement of Dominicans who were committed to support the music, to support the Dominican musicians who played that music, and to promote something that we were proud to identify with as a product of Dominica. I was happy to be part of that movement as a radio personality and as a musician. Thank you very much.
Thank you. He what? You hope he said everything? No, he didn't say everything. But we really are very grateful for your taking us back onto that nostalgic mountain. And when you were giving one story, I was thinking of another one. So thank you so much, Tim Durand. And remember, his group is called Naked Feet. I don't know why Naked Feet, but that's what we had at the time. Yes. Okay, I'm just awaiting instructions as well. Okay, all right. I got very succinct and comprehensive instructions. Thank you so much, boss. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the other exciting part as well of the reason why you are here. And I was asking you whether I should let the web sit. And I was told, yes, we should let him sit since Wadix had gone for something else. Now that Wadix has returned with his something else, we're going to have our first performer. He just happens to have my surname too. His name is Webster Marie the Webb. Please encourage him.
Yes, good evening. Mr. Knight, how are you? Where am I supposed to stay? Yes, yeah, that's the song, Wadix. Right away. Deba agetola. Dr. Dobbs. Deba agetola. Let nous te pity. Nous te famille. Agetola. Actuellement nous guadi. Toute l'amour fini. Agetola. Had nous pas te servi. Nous ba en amis. Agetola. Can't open my door. All I see is war. Friends then friending me. What's wrong with my society? Look, they fighting down there. 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 I don't understand. Jaja puts a hand, bring peace to my land. Look, they fighting down there. Look, they fighting down there. Deba, Agetola, Deba, Agetola, Deba. Agetola, God the Deba, Agetola. All you alright now? Deba, Agetola. Deba, Agetola. Laisse-moi la ligne clé, tout ça va te jouer. Agetola. Jodi tout ça fini, nous tourner l'ennemi. Agetola. Nous pas ni harmonie, politique jouer unity. Agetola. Things I see and hear fills my heart with fear. So much insanity, look pon white to Kubuli. Whoa, look, they fighting down there. 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 I don't understand. Jaja put a hand, bring peace to my land. Look, they fighting down there. Look, they fighting down there. Deba, Agetola, Deba. Agetola, Deba, Agetola, God the Deba, Agetola. Ha! Me Deba, woi, me Deba, Deba, Deba. Raise your hands, raise it. For peace in the land, raise it. Raise your hands, raise it. For peace in the land, raise it. Look, they fighting down there. Look, they fighting down there. Deba, Agetola, Deba, Agetola, Deba, Agetola. Me Deba, Agetola, Deba, woy, Deba, woy, Deba, woy. God, the Deba, Agetola, Deba, 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 woy, Deba, Deba. God, the Deba, Agetola. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. was a story, it was a beef, it was a cadence. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, some more, maybe from another spectrum, let us welcome the Oracle, that's one name, Mr. Jerry Lloyd, the gospel singer.
Ah, ma Melissa, yo fait, yo passe à tuer moi. Ok, vivant pour déclarer moi. Ah, yeah! Quand il est mi moi, qui moun kay moi. Moun qui ka vidi, fait tout bitin et puis moi. Yo oui et puis moi, mais derrière moi, yo ka mal parler moi. On seul bitin moi connaître. Moi ka toujours dit comme moi, yo pas ça tuer moi. Non. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ouh, monsieur. Ah, si yo te ça, yo te ke. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ah, yeah. Si l'ennemi mette moun de wa, on te ke préparé pour yo. Mais c'est moun qui hot kay moi-même. Aïe, aïe, aïe. Yo lave lang, yo ale moi. Yo ale di tout moun sa fait moi. Mais ça moi devant. Et ça yo derrière. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Non. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ouh, monsieur. Ah, mon Dieu, la mer. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ah, yeah. Si l'ennemi moi te moun de wa, on te ke préparé pour yo. Mais c'est moun qui hot kay moi-même. Aïe, 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 aïe. Yo lave lang, yo ale moi, yo ale di tout moun sa fait moi. Mais ça moi devant, et ça yo derrière, yo pas ça tuer moi. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ouh, monsieur, yo pas ça tuer moi. Bon Dieu ni la main elle moi. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Monsieur, pas jouer, ça bon Dieu fait. Pas jouer, ça bon Dieu fait. Si bon Dieu veut jouer, quittez fait pour quoi. Si bon Dieu veut juger, monsieur, quittez fait pour quoi. Pas jouer. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ouh, monsieur. Ah, merci. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ah, dans dit yo te comprendre, pour ça yo fait moi. On te que Japan. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Yo pas ça tuer moi. Ok, vivant pour déclarer l'amour bon Dieu. Vini s'il vous plaît. Ah, vini s'il vous plaît. Vini s'il vous plaît. Ah, yeah. Vini s'il vous plaît. Ah, vini s'il vous plaît. Un fois encore. Vini. Si ou te sa mais ou pas ça tuer moi. Si ou te sa me ou pasa. Ou pasa chue.
Yo pass a chwe moi. Not to kill what God make, eh? And it's a cadence, and it's a gospel. That's the beautiful thing about cadence. You can do some good things with it. So we want to thank you, Jerry, and we want to thank you, Mr. Murray. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on, we're moving along, and this time we're going to another interesting gentleman. This one is like Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. He is the go wash in the shime that you cannot move just like that. And I'm talking about a Mabrika man, Gregory Rabes, and he's going to be naming the groups and artists who joined and consolidated the Cadence Lypso movement. Gregory Rabes, ladies and gentlemen.
Mabrika. Bonsoir. Et bon matin aussi pour ces gens-là qui presque 12 jours à Paris et puis parce qu'on Seychelles, Réunion, le soleil a levé l'autre bord. Thank you very much. Greetings to all those listening via radio, all those participating online, various platforms. And of course, greetings to the audience here tonight, the special guests, panelists, and the media present as well. And of course, our very pleasant hostess. Is it a host? It's the feminine thing there and masculine. All right, my task is actually very simple. It's all on the wall. It's all on the wall here, this wall of fame, basically. But I will sort of delve a little bit deeper into all of this. When Exile One created the Cadence Lypso back in Paris, according to the anecdote, this sort of created a sort of a tsunami. The word tsunami wasn't really in vogue yet, but it eventually created a tsunami, and everybody got caught up in the wave. I mean, the producers, the promoters in Martinique and Guadeloupe, as some people have already recounted in terms of their search for Dominican bands, and the Dominican youth themselves got caught up in that wave. Everybody that's caught up in that wave. A lot of us, including me, resigned our cushy jobs, our white-collar jobs, teaching jobs, and became a musician. And the musician was supposed to be like a vagabond kind of career path. That wasn't a career path for fine, upstanding, enfants met l'école like me. That kind of thing. So everybody got caught up in that wave, and as you heard already, that there was a lot of interest by the Guadeloupean promoters based on the success of Exile One and Gramax and Liquidize in the departments. So this sort of provoked a movement in Dominica where a lot of the young musicians formed groups to take advantage of that process and of that phenomenon. So after Exile One, almost immediately on the heels of Exile One, you might say, came Gramax. Yeah? And then on the heels of Gramax came Liquidize. So these three groups operating in the French departments and in France sort of laid the foundation for the other bands to to come on the scene. You had some bands already which were sort of, you might say, around. They predated the Cadence era, like Swinging Stars, for example, Bell's Combo. But they eventually got caught in the wave, the Cadence wave, you might call it. So we had Bell's Combo out of Maho. And then out South City, we had another phenomenon of volcanic proportions. We are talking about the Midnight Groovers with Chubby and Co. as the potometer of that group, the Midnight Groovers. And out of Marigot, we had the Black Affairs. And Tim Durand already introduced us to the Pied Tutuni, the Naked Feet. And then you had a group which I was involved in. You had 3 Rabbis individuals in it, Rabesses, Sinky, Anais, and myself, Julie Mate, and in fact Janet Azuz was part of that, and eventually Style Rock came on board as well. The group, I'm talking about the group Mantra. And then we had, again from South City, the black phenomenon called Black Machine. We had Black Roots from the South, the Scottsdale area. We had another black called B-Blood from the urban Roseau area as well. And then we had Billowmen. We had Billowmen, which grouped people like Bill Thomas out of Trinidad and some of the luminaries here like Fred Nicholas. You had Zyro, you had Roger Aaron, you had Bellony Bird, top musicians. We talked about Mammoth. Mammoth was a group basically out of the Salisbury area, but basically operated in Guadeloupe rather than in Dominica. Again, in the north, in Portsmouth, we had Milestone. We had a sort of a offshoot of Exile One involving Julie and the bass player, Vivian Wallace, called Emphasis. And out of St. Joe, again, we had the Wax Power Vibrations. We had another group called Smoke. Again, in the urban area, we had Wafrikai. And then we had Swinging Stars. Swinging Stars was generally a band associated with Calypso, but it with the entry of the band Swinging Stars by folks like Hurricane, that's Cleve Jean-Jacques, and Super L, Levi Low Black, Swinging Stars got into the Cadence Lypso groove, let us put it that way. And then you had also what you might call an emerging phenomenon, the solo artists. So we had bands on one hand, and we had the solo artists on the other. People like Janet Azus, for example, was associated in very early days. She did some things with Bell's Combo, but she was a full-time member of Mantra, the group Mantra. But she also went on a solo career path. We also had the lady of song herself, Ophelia. And Ophelia, in terms of her impact on the role of women, the place of women in popular music, that's well documented and well established. We had other solo artists like Gilles Fontaine. You remember Gilles Fontaine? Basically backed up by groovers in some respects, with that similar kind of groovers groove. And then you had Anthony Gussie, who after the Black Affairs, and you had another group called New Examples as well, he basically developed a solo career path. Some of the top musicians in the bands, Exile One, Gramax, and so forth, Black Affairs, as I just mentioned, also, I would not necessarily became solo artists, but they went on what you might call solo projects. And Gordon himself, Henderson did a number of solo initiatives. Jeff Joe also did solo initiatives, solo recordings. Tony Valmer did some things as well. And Linford John, in fact, up to now, Linford John is actually on his solo career path in that sense as an individual artist. You also have Julie Morillon, who has released several recordings as Julie Morillon. You have Levi Black as well as a solo artist. And you have the gentleman we just heard singing, Jerry Lloyd, as well as a solo artist within the sort of cadence phenomenon. So next week, in my presentation, when I dissect the Cadence Lypso music, we will revisit again these bands, because one of the things about the bands here is that every band brought something to the table, to the Cadence Lypso table. They brought something special. They brought something unique. We're talking about a competition between Traza and Debs, but in a sense, you might say that sort of subtle, I don't want to call it competition, but it was, the idea was that every band wanted to have its own unique identity and unique sound. Another important thing about the bands that emerged in the 70s, they were, you might say, they emerged from a particular social context where Dominica was moving towards political independence. So we are in the 70s was a period of what you call social foment, cultural fervor, cultural nationalism. You had the Black Power phenomenon, and also you had the Rastafari, or the emerging Rastafari phenomenon. So a lot of these young people, you might say, were very conscious brethren and sistren. And that consciousness, that identification with blackness, that anti-colonial, anti-imperialist ideology and philosophy filtered into the lyrical content of the music. But that is for next week. That's for next week's discussion. But I say that to say that the young people in their 20s, got caught up in that Cadence Lypso tsunami. And that social and cultural context of Dominica and the economic context, you might say, in terms of the opportunities that it opened up in Guadeloupe, led to the development of these 20-odd bands, groups, and formations, and several solo artists who made such an important impact. And just before I conclude here, I should just sort of mention a few things about the post-80s period. In my sort of analysis of the bands that emerged in that era, I considered the period of the 70s as the classic cadence era. You might say in the mid to the late 70s, that you consider the zenith, the peak, the apex of the Cadence Lypso phenomenon. But however, that laid the foundation for the emergence of several other bands and individual artists in the 80s and beyond. And let me just mention, because it's important for the record and to put things in context. So in the 80s and beyond, we had the emergence of bands like the First Serenade, we had WCK, we had Triple K, Ceramix out of Portsmouth, we had the Songmasters in the Good Hope area, and more recently, in the last few years, we had out of the Maho area, generally speaking, T-Orchestre, and even more recently, again, out of Petit Savan, Ecstasy. Now, in the 90s, while all that was happening, we had the emergence of the World Creole Music Festival, and the important development in that sense revolves around Cornel Phillip, and what I call the Musique à Nous project. That was a project of the World Creole Music Festival, basically to create an album that would represent the best of Cadence Lypso music for the 90s, for that period, for that new dispensation. So in that period of the 90s, you had people like Michael Henderson and Cornell Phillip, Elijah, Elijah Benoit, who came together in this Mizikanu project, which gave Cadence Lypso, in a sense, a real shot in the arm. And beyond that, from the 2000 period and go on, again back to Cornell Phillip and his dear wife, Carlin XP, continued to explore the Cadence Lypso groove, quite apart from the bouillon and other things that they did. So there was sort of continuity. And then you had our friend who just passed, the mighty Eka, who from the Soufriere area, very roots Creole cadence phenomenon as an individual artist. And of course you had other individuals like Fresol and Linford who continue to do their recordings and perform in the current period. And then another development of note which impacted on Cadence Lypso in terms of the emergence of artists, whether it's bands or solo artists, was the NCCU Cadence Lypso competition. So that competition provoked, well, it unleashed, we might say, a great participation by many musicians in Dominica who may not have otherwise gravitated to Cadence Lypso. So the NCCU competition provided a sort of a stimulus to that, and we have quite a number of artists who have contributed to the further evolution of the form. And of course, we just had the web performing, and that's part of that. The White Fury, I think from the Grand Fond area. We have folks like my good friend Nathaniel Durand from Petit Soufriere. So you had the emergence of a range of new artists, young and not so young, as a result of action that was taking place beyond the zenith or the classical period of Cadence Lypso. So in sum, this is a sort of a snapshot, you might say, of the bands and individual artists that dominated the Cadence Lypso landscape here in Dominica. We focus on Dominica in that sense. And just before I leave the table, I think I would invite you to join me in terms of recalling some of our fallen heroes or fallen cadence stalwarts. And of course, we got to remember Jeff Joe. We got to remember Pierre Labassière, who actually vocalized one of the, you might say, a Cadence Lypso classic, Wash Masson Wifizé. We have to remember as well Oliver Cruikshank, Funky Crookie. We have to remember Bill Thomas, Trinidadian, Caribbean, Dominican. We have to remember, well, he just passed, the mighty Eka. And there are many others, the drummer of Midnight Groovers, Henry Bellot. You might want to help me with some of these names. Maliwe, Xavier Foster, all of that. And of course, if we talk about Maliwe, when we dissect the music, yes, I'm just being reminded of Tony Valma as well. So we have some Cadence Lypso heroes and stalwarts who have left us, the great cadence beyond, you might say. Cadencing. I think Bilomen had a song called Cadencing Rhapsody, number something or the other. So I guess all these guys are in another realm doing a sort of a new wave cadencing rhapsody. All right, so big up to all these fallen heroes, and big up to our present day heroes and all the stalwarts who are pushing and promoting the cadence angelique. Gordon in Paris, big up. Merci en pile, merci en shy, merci en low, it all means the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Merci en shy.
Than just data.
Merci
You
en
level up to a whole new digital life. Level up with deep music. music. For your favorite local and international tracks, level up with Sportsmax and catch the top live sports action. Level up with Go Loud for radio stations and trending podcasts from Dominica. And level up with Playgo for the latest movies, TV series, and local shows. Enjoy a 7-day Prime bundle at only $32 with 49 gigabytes of dedicated data for premium access to your favorite app without touching your any use data. That's a total of 59 gigabytes. Activate a Prime bundle in the My Digicel app. Digicel, better together.
Yo, what's up?
Bro, if you're on any top-up vendor, put $20 Digicel top-up for me. Right now it's tight for me to leave them.
You know you can do some of these transactions on your phone?
Oh yeah?
Yeah, man. Go to My Digicel app. If you don't have it, download it. Here's the directions. Launch the app. Press top up. Enter your number. Press continue. Then you put in your amount. Press checkout. Then select the payment method, debit or credit. Then press pay now. You're done. That's it.
God, sir, thank you. Boy, you sung it just like a radio ad.
Ha, no problem, bro. I hear that all the time.
Top up, purchase plans, or send credit using the My Digicel app. Get it now from Google Play or Apple Store.
Digicel.
That's why. Any others? But this is fantastic. And you know, like I was saying when we were doing the launch, that's our heritage. That's our history. That's our music. If you feel it, embrace it. Okay? It's ours. Even if you don't feel it, embrace it. At this point, I am delighted to be able to introduce, I wish I could introduce all of you, but I will introduce Royette Laurent to give us some of the music.
Welcome to Dominica, the nature island of the Caribbean, where you can experience
adventure and more. Dominica, the nature I live in here, it's a paradise. Dominica, I love you. Natural flowers of beauty, fresh water and lovely breeze, you have meant so much to me. Rivers, valleys and mountains, such as the Twapit Orange, waterfall and sulfur spring. Life for us is just a dream. Agouti and Cicero, mountain chicken manicu. Dominica, I love you. Dominique belle c'est comme la cassière. 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 Dominica, the nature I live in here, it's a paradise. Dominica, I love you. Lovely beaches and sunshine, you are always on my mind. You're the only one of a kind. You the mother of nature, creative in your culture. Never leave us on the floor when it comes to agriculture. While there are so many more waiting there to welcome you. Dominica, I love you. Dominique belle c'est comme la cassière. 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 Dominique, Dominique, un pays qui est très joli. Ni yo live pour chaque jour à l'année. Nous pas qu'à jamais matcher, anti-soleil et puis la pluie. Dominique, c'est un pays très joli. Pour passer à yon vacances, yon nous pas que l'obilier. Dominique, j'ai en a pour ça. Ou pas besoin porter ailleurs, ou ça oublie ou que trouver. Dominique, c'est un pays très joli. Aïe 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 Dominique, oui 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 Dominique. 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 Ouais. Dominique ou belle c'est quand la cassiel. 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 Sing with me. Aïe aïe aïe. Woy oy oy. Aïe 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 Dominique. Woy oy oy Dominique. Aïe aïe aïe. Woy oy oy Dominique. Aïe 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 Dominique. Woy oy oy Dominique. Aïe oy. Thank you.
Aye, 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 Dominique. That is something Cadence has to, a lot of repetition, so you can get into the vibe, the rhythm. Thank you, Royette, for that. And our other lady, Delma David. Danielle, I saw Danielle, you know, but I said David. I don't know why. Oh, I wrote it as David, that's why. But that's okay, that's allowed, right? I can make a little...
Yes, most people call
okay.
David.
Didi.
Ni de ton moun jodi, kapa jen jamais pris pour la vie yo ka vivant. Sort toujours en commerce, pas sa copan jeunesse, c'est comme ça yo ka di. Le yo gade en temps longtemps, le yo même te jan jan, men yo te ka vivo. Comme si li fote yo avant, te tellement différent, jen moun yo vle pini. Wow, wow, fort c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, 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 fort c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, wow. Maman attend longtemps, t'es qu'à vêtir jeune gens, compagnon t'es qu'à suivre. Quand sa maman jodi, nous même qu'à vêtir, garçon et petite fille. Zami pote ou ale, pa kamene ou viwe, elle est bonne la pété, aïe. Ou ke tape ou yon, et ou pa ni pièson, ki moun ki kay sauve ou. Wow, wow, fort c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, 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 fort c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, wow. We're all in this together. No one is a saint. When you point a finger, do you judge ourselves the same? We're all in this together. No one is a saint. When you point a finger, do you judge yourself the same? Any politicien, si yo ki met ki yon den, parole yo se mati. Pa konet ou jodi, men lek se ka vini, si yo ki pri meye zami ou. Ni sa ki pa mele, ni sa ki ka ni jwe, ni sa ki mechaste. Ni rouge, ni blé, ni jaune, yo même si se yon, se lo yo ka fouye, pa vwe? Wow, wow, fort c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, 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 fort c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, wow. We're all in this together. No one is a saint. No one is a saint. Do you judge yourself the same? We're all in this together. No one is a saint. When we point our fingers, do we judge ourselves the same? Whoa, whoa, Forte c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, oh, oh. Wow, oh, oh. Forte c'est fort, tout c'est même. Wow, oh, oh. Wow, oh, oh. Forte c'est fort, tout c'est même. Thank you.
During this hurricane season, ensure that you have the following on hand: extra batteries, a flashlight, candles or lamp, matches or lighter in the event of a power outage. Have a portable radio available for regular updates. Don't get caught off guard. Be prepared. Brought to you by Best Price.
At this point, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a program, you'll realize that we have had to take a leap and go over Daniel Beatty's because we were having technical difficulties. But he did a beautiful thing. He has recorded his presentation, and that is going to be presented at this point. Daniel, bonsoir. Mon pas savent sou katan moi, mais mon ka di ou merci en l'eau pour rôle là ou ka jouer au soir là et puis nous ka koute ou. I don't know which language he's coming with. Take it.
Population Martinique et puis population Guadeloupe et puis d'autres pays francophones. D'abord, Exalwan et puis Gordon Henderson porté en l'eau et impact là sociologique, économique, culturel, linguistique. D'abord sur le plan économique, ça a été important parce que c'est la première fois en orchestre qui a parlé créole dans le pays français réalisé bagaille là et puis en logène groupe qui professionnel et impact économique là qui a perduré et qui a bas Martinique et puis Guadeloupe exemple puisque 10 ans après Cassa, Cavini et Capri en orchestre. Impact sociologique, parce que les arrivés Guadeloupe, Exal et puis c'est orchestre Dominica, ils ont porté en notre bagaille, ils ont porté notamment toute bagaille en l'air, en mode chivé, mode aussi boubou, mais ça fait.
That's what we can get? That's what he said.
Distinction Milk Back to School promotion. This summer, win money for school tuition, books, school uniforms, and stationery by way of a pass valued at $500, a bursary valued at $700, and the grand prize of $1,000 value scholarship. To enter the draw, purchase 5 cans of 410 grams Distinction Milk and 5 cans of 170-gram Distinction Milk. Place all 10 Distinction Milk labels into an envelope with your name, number, address, and the school that you're attending, and place in the draw box provided for you. Promotion runs from now until August 16, 2021. The Distinction Back to School promotion is available at all Fine Food retail stores and selected locations island-wide. For more information, check out our social media pages. Win money for school with Distinction Milk this summer. Terms and conditions apply. Distinction Milk, distributed by Fine Foods, Inc.
Network télécommunication à Dominica, Digicel classé en paquet nouveau offert. Digicel Prime Bundles. Plus mais passer n'importe vite nous pouvons jamais baser messie à Dominica avec plus d'état. Nous pouvons jamais baser d'état comme ça. Plus musique sur 10 musiques. Plus Power Live sur
sur Sportsmax. Les films pour garder sous Plego. Avec Digicel Prime Bundles, c'est plié pour expériencer ces bons temps avec Digicel. Avec plus d'état, messieurs, mesdames. Tapez 56 giga data, 56 gigs of data. Avec 11 semaines package avec Digicel. Mamma mia, so mané pour data. Avec mi data, ça c'est bon temps avec Digicel. Achetez à la main Digicel app, jodi la vite, ma pressé. Digicel, please, meilleur somme.
My presentation is going to be slightly different, obviously. I'm going to be looking more from the political economy and historical context of the music and the impact that had on the music and how the music itself impacted the society and the wider world. This is really something for a full-fledged dissertation. I know Ophelia and Dr. Joseph would have liked me to do a whole big lecture on that. But I will endeavor to just raise a few issues, a few points, so we can ponder on and really help to start a conversation about the impact, the global impact of that music. So as we celebrate this first ever Cadence Lypso month, I think we celebrate and embrace the centrality of the music as part of the culture. I say the centrality of the music to the culture because Cadence Lypso has been central to the Dominican music, both the intrinsic value of the culture as well as its economic, social, and political value. Because as our friend from Martinique was saying, Cadence Lypso impact was much more than the music. So the political, economic, and social value has to be looked at as well. My presentation will focus on the role of Cadence Lypso as a tool in mobilizing the youth and the wider society in the pursuit of social justice, equality, human decency, and in the birth of a new nation, Dominica. Today and throughout this month, I think we're also celebrating the personalities, those persons who made this really grand mission possible. Hundreds of men, women, Dominicans, West Indians, people from Creole world, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Haiti, and others, were part of this noble and inspiring cultural enterprise that was the Cadence Lypso, or what Gregory say. We can talk about the various phases of this enterprise. But I think we also have to stop, pause, and pay homage to. Where is he? You disappear, Gordon. But folks, I think it will, it would be remiss of us if tonight we do honor in a special way, in a massive way, Gordon Henderson. I mean, wait. I mean, he gave it to us. It's not he and other people. Gordon gave it to us, folks. And so tonight, we celebrate Gordon Henderson, whilst we celebrate Cadence Lypso. Thank you. As you know, the period of the 60s, maybe the late 50s, 60s, and 70s, we were influenced by what is called the top 40 chat music on the radio station, DBS and Caribbean radios. So we used to listen to the soul music. Everybody wanted to be a soul man. Gordon was a soul man. Tony Balmer was a soul man. Harley Butt was a soul man. Everybody wanted to be a soul man. But we also listened to a lot of funk music. Steppenwolf and Led Zeppelin and all those guys. So you hear the early music exile one, hear the bass line? It's funky stuff. That is what influenced the music in Dominica. And so in the 60s and 70s, there were bands all over. With so much about wooden stools, Every Mother's Child, The Boys and Them, Patrick Pemberton. Yeah. He's here. One of the exponents of the music at that time. And so in Roseau alone, there were bands all over. They were all over the place. And then you had bands throughout the communities. Maho, St. Joe, Grand Bay, of course, Portsmouth, and so on. But we were influenced by the music of the times. So it was funk, it was soul, it was Latin, jazz, and all of that. And I think that helped to give Dominican music its flavor and its taste. And something magical happened in 1973-74. That was given to us by Gordon Henderson and a group of exiles. Exile One. You know, I was fascinated by that group, folks. I can tell you, every time I listen to the music, then and even now, I can tell you the last 2 weeks I've been listening to Exile One, like crazy. I listen to other music too. I listen to Ophelia, Graham Max, Bells Combo, everybody. But I listen to Exile One. To me, the greatest band there ever was from this niche island. That's my view. The greatest band there ever was from this niche island. Folks, so let me just put this thing in context now. So there were 3 important historical moments that helped to shape and to influence the music, and the music influenced those moments. The first historical moment was what I call a racial reckoning that was taking place in much of the world. The urge for black consciousness, black power. We wanted to be in charge of our own destiny. In the United States, in the Caribbean, and throughout the world, black people began to assert themselves and the need for black identity and black power. So that's the first part. The second, an important historical moment was probably a grander one, was the political and social movement that helped to shape that period. It was the time, the arrival of Edward Oliver LeBlanc and the Labour Party, Dominica Labour Party. It was the arrival of Rastafari in Dominica, and how they helped, to give us a new kind of awakening, a new kind of consciousness. But it also coincided with the return of a lot of Dominican intellectuals. Bill Riviere, Bernard Wilshire, Francisco Esprit, and of course, Afi Martin, and I say, of course, Rosie Douglas, okay? And we know what happened, MND, DLM, and so on. So all that was happening in Dominica at the time, in terms of the politics, trade unionism was beginning to really shape the agenda for development in the country, because it was just, 20 odd years before that, we had the Moyne Commission report that talked about the problems of vast inequality in these islands, and the fact that these islands were really in need of massive social and economic change. And we were not seeing it happening. And so people began to assert the right to self-determination and independence. And so this is the context that all of that was happening, that music and culture began. So there's a third wave now, the third important moment, what I call the cultural renaissance. And so we began to see a clearly identifiable Dominican aesthetics, that is in dance, with Raymond Lawrence and all the people involved in dance, in theater, with People's Action Theater, and in music, Gaylord's Power Union, The Boys and Them, Bells Combo, Calypso, and all of those things. And of course, then, so we had Gordon Henderson. And I think I will keep talking about Gordon because he was central to all of this. So there are 3 important things that happened that helped to influence how that music, in fact, emerged and what it began to do for the society on a whole. So Cadence Lypso really emerged out of this social, political, and cultural movement of the time, of the 1970s. It was a movement for truth, for social justice, to discover who we are as a people, Kimunuye, to bring us closer together, to particularly the struggling masses of Dominica and the Caribbean, and to better understand that our destiny was in our own hands, and we had to, in fact, take it and run with it. And so God gave us the sword to help us in moving it. Because, you know, what the important thing we need to understand is that whilst the politics was very strong and, you know, inspiring with Leblanc and the Labour Party, the society was very we had a very divisive society. And so we couldn't get all the forces together to advance our own interests as a nation. And we saw the struggles that we had to get independence. Even at a time when countries in Africa were moving towards independence, particularly the Anglophone Africa and in French Africa. And the big four in the Caribbean had started to get independence. By that time, Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, and Trinidad already, they were independent countries. And Grenada in 1974. So Dominica was the next country. And so music and the arts really played an important, a pivotal role in mobilizing our people, in mobilizing in particular the young people. And I don't think that we really recognize the role that was played by the music and the arts at that time. But also we need to recognize, and I think Tim Durand spoke to it, was that the birth of Cadence Lypso was also the birth of a fledgling Dominican music industry. For the first time, Dominican bands and Dominican musicians began to realize the value, the tremendous value of their talent. And they could put it to economic use to earn a living, a livelihood. So, yes, it's true that many of them didn't succeed in Guadeloupe and Martinique or wherever they went to, but at least it began to open the eyes that, hey, this thing that we call, you know, music, what we were doing as a hobby, we can in fact earn a living from it. And so guys like Gordon, you saw what Exile One did, you saw what Grand Max did. Those guys went fully professional. And they were living good lives. I mean, I can tell you, I spent some time with Grand Max in particular in Martinique. And those guys, they had their struggles, but compared to the generation before them, I think they were much better off from an economic and social standpoint. And so the birth of Cadence Lypso, and in particularly the emergence of Exile One, Grand Max, and then the other bands, really demonstrated that we could, in fact, develop a thriving music industry if we were organized, if we were mobilized, and of course, if we had the support, the institutional and other kinds of support that is necessary to build an industry. We know the problems with that, and what happened with the music maybe 10, 20 years later. But the fact is, it demonstrated to Dominica, the rest of Dominica, and to the world, that it was possible. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I think what Cadence Lypso music did for Dominica, and it did for most of the Creole-speaking world, was that a country like Dominica, where Dominica was unheard of on the global stage. We were not connected to global whatever, whether it's global economy or politics. We were an unknown entity. But the music took us to the world stage. You could hear Dominican music in far-flung corners of Africa, in Asia, in Brazil, in Central America. You know, it's the Super Bowl. Grand Max was chosen among Caribbean bands in 1980 to participate at the Super Bowl in Miami. And that, to me, was a great feat. But I don't think that we really recognize the value. Even today, even after almost 50 years, we still haven't really given, prominence to what the music has done for Dominica. And of course, I don't think we have given prominence to Gordon Henderson for his tremendous role either. So I think probably there is a need for there's a call, that we should make a call, a plea, for us to recognize those personalities and those players who, in fact, help in forging this kind of new identity and this new ethos in the culture and the development of Dominica. And so, Gregory spoke about an avalanche. So I say it's a groundswell. We had a groundswell, a tsunami of music that was coming out of Dominica through the enterprising efforts of our artists, our art entrepreneurs, our creators. They were all over making music. And not just making music, but making good music, folks. I mean, even almost 50 years later, you go on YouTube and you listen to some of that music, and it is just tremendous. You see the comments there. Those guys could play. So they recognize the value of hard work, commitment, and of course, ensuring that you work on your craft. Those guys worked from sun up to sundown. They practiced. They were in band houses. And I think that helped to influence artists outside of music, whether it's the theater people. I mean, I was in People's Action Theater, and you had to go to the rehearsals 2 and 3 times a week when Alvin called those sessions, or else you wouldn't be cast for any performance. That was what epitomized the times that we were living in the 70s and 80s. It was about dedication, about hard work. And so folks, I would say that Cadence Lypso was not just a music genre. It was a commercial enterprise as well, as I said earlier. It is a music that gave us a sense of identity and pride in the global community. So I went to school in Cuba, and I was very close to some Cape Verde students. And we used to have parties all the time. And one day they were playing some music. Play on the record player, and those guys playing this, and I said, but hold on a while, I hear this sounding like Dominican music. And I asked the question, the guy said, no, that's not Dominican music. And then I said, let me see the cassette. And on the cassette I saw Irony by Exile One. So they were doing covers of Dominican music. So Exile One, Black Affairs, and they didn't even know the music was coming from Dominica, except that I was told later on that Fitzroy Williams was, in fact, a great influencer in the music community in Paris, and he was working very closely with young musicians from Cape Verde. So they were playing Exile music, they were playing Black Affairs music. And then we began to realize that the music was very popular in Portuguese Africa, in Mozambique, Angola, Sao Tome, Principe, and those countries. And of course, French Africa, La Réunion and Ivory Coast and so on. But in Portuguese Africa, that's where the music really was strong and popular. And La Réunion is still a bastion for Dominican music up to today. But then I think Exile One guys still go there and play and jam and have a good time, So those guys, they saw the music not just as a hobby. They saw it as something that they need to take to heart. And I heard Linford John in an interview with Wadix a few months ago, talking about how they were worked up by the late, great Bill Thomas. Bill worked those guys from early morning until nighttime. They had to be in there. And these are big men, eh? They were not kids. They had to practice and to get it right, to do it over and over and over. And God was the first person I heard saying that if you go somewhere and they give you a form and say, your profession, most people say you're a banker, or you're a carpenter, or you're this. You say for the first time, put musician. Because that's what you used to get up in the morning to do. Get up in the morning and dedicate so many hours to working, to building, and to creating. That was part of the ethos. It was important for them to do that because they had to be the best. How would they be able to break through those barriers in the French world, in Africa? That is the only way. You had to produce music that the global music market was looking for. You couldn't just come and just do music as if it was a side thing. You couldn't go to Africa or to Latin America. Like you hear Exile One song, Je Me Voisa, playing in Brazil, over 3 million copies sold. I bet they stole the music. But you know what? It does demonstrate the fact that that music was so powerful that it penetrated that far. So imagine you hearing that song, one of the best songs by Exile One, by the way. And so that was what the music, in fact, did. So for me, Cadence Lypso reflected much of the times, the prevailing feelings of the times. It was a time of ideas, of ideological fervor and thought. It was a time of black power, a reflection of our blackness, our Africanness. It was also a time that we were yearning for social justice, gender equality, and therefore many of the songs reflected those ideas, those themes, and the ideological struggles that was taking place in Dominica and in the rest of the world. So we could do a whole thesis on songs and what their meanings. Just a few of them. You know, God, Exile One song, Nous travaillons pour rien. You know, tell you a reflection of the Middle Passage and the hard time of our black ancestry. And they sang Akliaka. In fact, 2 Dominican bands sang to the theme, the International Year, Women's Year, 1975. Bells Combo, La Libération de la Femme, and Exile One, Akliaka, La Née de la Femme. That tells you, you know, those guys were just doing music. They were in tune with what was happening. And then, of course, much later, Gordon Tuck sang Chuyo. What a song. What a song it was. Still is. Gramax has a catalog that is just unbelievable. You know, they sang about Sukuya and the deba that was taking place in the society. Deba of various kinds, yeah? And we did it early on, you know, I mean, and they also sang party songs. Pardon say Abakoko Sek has meaning, but also a party song. You could dance to it and have a good time. But Jeff also sang Politique. What a song. Again, reflecting the times, the political upheavals in Europe at the time and the Caribbean, but particularly what is happening, the wars that was going on at that time. And Jeff also sang Banana Sweet, the sweet song with Kool and the Gang. And then he connected it with Luke Leandre, and then he helped to create Voltafast. Again, some of the sweetest music. You know, he sang 1, 2, 3, and what's the other one? You know, so I can go on and on about Jeff, Joe, and Exile One. But also the other groups contributed tremendously to that wide catalog of Dominican music. Black Affairs, I Mama, and Camilla, reflecting the indigenous language and the culture of the northeastern part of Dominica. I was listening to I Mama a couple of nights ago, Anthony Gossi. And it's just so beautiful, folks. So I want to urge everybody here tonight, go on YouTube. We need to go and listen to the music. Listen to the music. And go on the streaming platform. You can buy some of that music. I don't know if they're still on the platforms, to buy them, to consume the music, and to support the music still. Because these are really wonderful songs. Midnight Groovers. What I consider the most revolutionary and socially conscious of all the bands, spoke directly and forcefully to social justice in songs like Coco Sec, Milk and Honey, and so many tunes. To me, they were the hard-hitting band, direct. You know, they were activists. And Ophelia sang I, Dominic, To me, a song speaking to the inner self and the hardships that we endured as a people throughout all of this period and this time, that time. Still important today, still very relevant today. Oh, and Billowmen. What can I say about Billowmen? Billowmen took us to a higher spirit, a higher being. And to me, some more compelling moments with songs like African music. They have a song called Ma Dieu, Ma Famille et Moi. That's so beautiful. And Voisine and Grève Générale. Those songs can never die. I saw Billowmen, Gramax, and Vikings Guadeloupe play in Toisilé in Martinique. 2 stages, one at either end. The place ram jam. Billowmen started the jam. Nobody danced. Folks, no one danced. Nobody moved. Everybody's like that. Gramax started their piece. And the crowd they were just like levitation. The whole place was transformed because Jeff Joe, Sukuya, and the songs, the place was just moved into a frenzy. But the second time Billowmen came back now was magic. Bill Thomas, well, Freddie wasn't there at the time. He had left the band briefly. Both Freddie and Zyro had left. But Bird, Andrew Bellady Bird, the guy could play any amount of instruments like Patrick Pemberton could, and maybe still can. Still does. But Freddie Nicholas, Bird, Andrew Bellady Bird was just an incredible musician. Sing, play the guitar. Well, he wasn't playing the guitar at that time. He was playing drums. He was a drummer. And Linford John was playing drums. So those guys, that band was just incredible. You just seen these guys just moving, you know. I mean, you don't know what is happening. You know, things are happening. You know, and it was just so wonderful just watching those guys play. Just a pity they never came to Dominica. We never had the chance to see them on the stage in Dominica. But what a group they were. And we can talk about, there's so many other bands. We spoke about all the bands and their contribution, their tremendous contribution to the music business. And so I highlight some of the major personalities, Gordon and the Exile One group, the original group, and those others who follow. Jeff Joe, First Soul, and the Gramax guys, Mike Morrow and Harley, Chubby and Co, say Pilotui, Anthony Gossi, Marshall Lawrence, Milestones, Freddie Linford, Zyro Bird, and Bill Thomas, Tony Valmer, tremendous artist he was, Derek Peters of Mammoth, the guys from Naked Feet, and so many others. But folks, I want to say something, and I hope nobody take offense, because I want to say there was a super six, I call them. There are others, and I mentioned some of them. The other person is Anthony Gossi of Black Affairs. But to me, there were 6 artists, 6 personalities in the movement who I think probably could start the first Hall of Fame, if there is such a thing. I want to start, obviously, with the creator, Gordon Henderson. The second person will be Fitzroy Williams, who helped to give the music its unique sound and its signature appeal. Jeff Joe, cultural ambassador, on-stage personality par excellence. Chubby Mac, cultural revolutionary activist. Ophelia, she did so much for women and for the music around the world. And last but not least, is a non-Dominican who I think was a genius, Bill Thomas. This would be my super 6 to start. There are others, there are many others that will come, but I would say, to me, these 6 had a major imprint on the music and played a major role in getting us here tonight. So the music was played throughout in Guadeloupe, in Martinique, in Haiti, La Réunion, France, in Portuguese Africa, French Africa, Brazil, in South and Central America. But of course, It was played heavily in Dominica, as Tim was saying. On the radio, every radio station played Cadence music. It was played in halls across Dominica, in fetes, children's dance, matinee dance, school dances, private fetes. Cadence Lypso was the music. Folks, I went to a fete in Grenada in 1981 with the late Maurice Bishop, and those guys were jamming to some Exile One music. Oh boy, what a sight that was, just to see those guys just enjoying that wonderful music. And so I reminisce all of these things because I think it's important for us to bear witness to what is taking place and what Wadix and his comrades have done to bring us here tonight. So for me, it was, in fact, a movement, and Gregory defined the phases. I don't want to go into that. But I would say that in spite of we saw the decline taking place. I would say, Gregory, I would say the decline started a little later, but nonetheless, we saw the decline taking place in the middle to late 80s, maybe middle 80s. And that decline was predicated by the lack of support. And I say lack of support, lack of institutional support, lack of state support, and a weak ecosystem to build an industry, which is what was needed. That was happening at the time when Zouk became a major musical force, and of course, with more corporate and institutional support from France and corporate France. But the decline was also predicated on by a shift, though, in the political, ideological sphere. The society had changed by then. We could no longer sing songs of Africa and songs about messages, because the reality was the mid-80s was characterized by a different political culture, whereas the 70s was more progressive, black consciousness. The 80s was about market forces, was about right-wing politics, and the ideology of somebody else. We looked towards the West more. We felt that we were more integrated into the Western world. And is that right? Is that right? So I say again, I'm raising those points there for us to ponder upon, because people saying, I hear all kinds of reasons why we think the music declined, but I want to say categorically that the reasons are varied. So they are the political economy and ideological issues, the lack of support. Zouk had emerged or was emerging as a major force, and the groups were getting support from major sponsors, from the French government and so on. And of course, the reality on the ground in Dominica and the rest of the region was changing. So that notwithstanding, some of us, we've held on true to this movement. And so after almost 50 years, some of us, you see my head getting, yeah, we're still there. And we're supporting the movement, we're still supporting the thing. But two important things happened, or I would say three important things happened since. One is, Gregory mentioned it, the work by Cornell Phillip, to produce those albums, I think helped to give that small fillip. The second thing is obviously the World Crew Music Festival as a major, institutional push for not just Cadence music, but for Dominican music. And of course, the third thing is the NCCU Cadence Lypso competition has been an important part of the need for us to resuscitate, to revive, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I always like to offer solutions, because we have to think positively, we have to be optimistic, and so I want to offer a few things. One is that there is a need for us to do some more mentoring. So people like Ophelia, Gordon, Gregory, we need to see some more mentoring of a new cadre of artists and creators of Cadence Lypso music. We have to see in Dominica institutional support and strengthening of the music ecosystem in Dominica. And I know that the government of Dominica is, in fact, looking at that. The government actually put in $1 million into a credit facility a couple of years ago. And there's a big project now to build a creative industries project as part of the Ministry of Culture's program. So we're hoping that we'll see some more fruits from that program. I think the further thing I want to say is that the musicians have to look at themselves as well. There has to be a bigger commitment to the cause and to the development of the music. You have to work on your craft more. Songwriting, music production. We have to look at how we work with teams, promoters and engineers and producers, because no man is an island. The music industry has changed, it's more complex, it's more competitive, and so we have to look at the totality of the industry. We have to look at more and more on the issue of intellectual property, and in particular copyright. There are too many Dominican artists whose music has been played or been consumed and they're not earning anything from it. And so you have to do something about it. So that's the copyright side. The branding, how to better understand how to brand the music and how to brand your product. So you can do deals, whether it be licensing and merchandising and placements and those kinds of things. So you can earn revenue, not just by playing on the stage and on tours, but you can do things. Sometimes when you fall sick or something happens to you, you have those things as backup plans. Developing the capacity to digitization of the music, because that is the future of the music industry. We have to digitize it more. Digitization is a must. And so tomorrow there's a big regional online workshop on that with Dr. Nurse, and I urge people to join in and to link into that. We need to document this experience. So much of what we're doing, we need to document it. We need to curate all of those things, the great things that happened, and not just just reminisce about it. So those things, put it in the museum. We have a project that we're working on. So we want to see how we can preserve those things so for this generation and future generations can take that in. And of course, we want to see more support for the music locally and in the diaspora. I have already said we want to see more people should go on YouTube and do more views, buy the music online, and support the music, consume it more. And of course, the last thing is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Jeff Joe taught us how to do that. We need to see more of that. I want to see Ophelia and Mikhail do some stuff, folks. I would wish to see that happen, you know? And there are other examples of possibilities for collaboration. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sobers. I hope you recognize he gave us homework. We have to go on YouTube, and we have to understand how or what roles each one of us has to play and how we play the roles. I really want to thank DBS for making sure a lot of people hear what is happening here tonight, and I want to thank the media people for carrying, the other media people for carrying the information across as well. That is one rule that I think is being realized tonight. So, but when you were talking, I was thinking of another lady artist, but she escapes my mind now. But again, I am permitted to forget sometimes. Okay. Jerry Lloyd, you're doing a lot of mentoring that people are not talking about. I'm sorry, I'm exposing you, but we know that kind of thing. And this is, you know, it has to continue. We have somebody from the cultural division. You have to continue with what you're doing too. Weren't you in one of the bands? It was RSB? Yes, and so give the people your name so they know who you are. Okay?
He's the boss.
Yeah, yeah, he's the culture boss now. He probably doesn't like to hear that yet, but he will grow. A lot of beautiful things are happening this evening. And I want to add to one. I'm going to ask, what a name you have, sir? You're a white fairy. Fairy? Oh, so what is that? A sukunya that's white? Not that? So what is it? It's just a name. Well, I wanted to go under. I'll give you a chance. I'll ask you when you're in grand form. Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, oh yes, I want to recognize Mr. Henderson Jr., Dion, and I also would like to recognize Shirley S. We can give them a round of applause. Thank you so very much. Shirley, you came second in one of the NCCU competitions. It was a hard cadence that you sang. So we have to recognize that, you know. And we, the ladies, we need a little more stroking than you all are giving us, all right? So we're taking it because you're not giving it to us. So thank you so very much for all of the other good things that are happening. And at this point, let me go back to the white fairy, and I'll make sure I say it properly again the other time. Let's give him that round of applause.
Oi. Good night to you all. Good night to everyone present. Good night to everyone listening via media. Mr. Henderson, good night to you. Yes, I wanted to say good night. White Fairy. Oi. Yes, I know for many it's not easy to forget what went down, brothers. Over and over, hearing voices of loved ones who passed on. The voices of the little children crying, Daddy, what's going on? Praying for a moment of terror and suspense to be done. It was a heartbreak to see what was left. Our sweet country was brought to its depth. Many were homeless, don't know what was next. Struggling for food, we were in distress. And under all this, many people chose to fight. Some leaders forgot their duty was to unite. People revoked their oath to give and chose greed as a way to survive. But we kept striving, we faced the toughest storm. The looting and the wrong we done. We lost our livelihood and death we mourned, but we held on. And we're moving on. Dominica strong. Whoa, 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 boom. Yes, I. Cadence. Check, check, check. Whoa, 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 whoa. Uh-huh. How many times shall a man fall before we realize, brother? It's the not from another that's creating the will to survive. Many claim it is the works of the Father, still some Christians backslide. Closing their doors on the needy under all these hard times. Pouvale moun ki pedi tout plas yo. Pani pièce moun pou gade pou yo. Moun ki jani ka tape tout bite. And poor people on the street ni pou ete ya mize. And under all was financial stress. La yo se pou live sick people and let. And there are so many people who had yet received a good paycheck. But we kept striving. We got a task to perform. Despite no salary or low income. Our poor hard-working people lost their jobs, but we held on. And we're moving on, brother. That is Dominica strong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Check, check. Jamie, Jamie. Check, check. Whoa, whoa. Why? Jamie. How can we move forward if we do not recognize, brother, the things we need? How do we seek to help each other if we hide all what is good and the rejects we give?
We're going backwards every day through the greedy and the jealous little way we live. So many holding down each other, brother. No one wants to see the other one succeed. Pouchi pou jen nom ni yo ni pou bat la je. Ki sa an jen fam ki ni sex a fa sa fe. Se voyon moun ke ni yon ti travay sa fe. Me galvanize misye jodi tel mache. Non moun a konsul yo fe bagay pli kritik. La yo pwet jwe politics. Si yo ba ou an bite. But we kept striving. We keep striving. We still, so many fail to recognize the young, but we held on. And we're moving, Miss Mary, Dominica strong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Merci bode pou sa we fe bano. Ata move se yi ki gade nou. He gave us strength so we carried on. We thank you Lord for what you done. We thank all countries who assisted us. It was your effort that brought us from dusk. You made us see that we're not alone. You proved to be your shining sun. Tommy. See you, said. Yeah, man. Wadix tell me one not enough, so you know I'm gonna do another one. Mr. Lloyd, talk to me.
Do you live in Travis' basement?
Well. If I have to show you a video, you know, last night I was actually in Chubby's band house. Practicing everything of Chubby. So, run it, selector. Dominica. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't you give up, brother. Papula Jeffrey. You're looking at the life of another and you're thinking that they're better than you. Cause every day you wake up in the struggles and you say that things ain't working out for you. One thing that you should know, brother. Not everyone was born with a golden spoon. Most people who want to hope, they had worked harder and that's what you should do. So let me do lawa mizel. You can solve them, brother, don't give up. You're in the system, financial problems. You can fight them, sister, don't give up. No, no, no. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. No, no, no. Don't you give up, brother. No, 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 no. Give up. No, 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 no. Whoa, 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 whoa. The fans out there, Papula Jeffrey. Jou la ka ouve, ou la ka chile, ki sa ou ka y fe. Ki sa ou ka y maje, denye fwa ou maje bien se depien. Ou ni zafan pou voye l'école, klete ou pou kon paye. Oh non, non, maladie tombe à l'école, bil l'hôpital pour payer, pièce pour ne pas mêler. Mais là on est douleur, là on misère. You can solve them, brother, don't give up. You win the system, financial problems. You can find them, sister, don't give up, nana. Pas pour la jack, pas pour laisser. Don't you give up, brother. No, 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 no. Give up. No, 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 no. Chebe. 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 Cut. You know, a little entertainment. I love that. Don't you give up. Brother. Chip. Boy. You fuss and fight can even hurt another when the scripture keeps on building upon you. You work so hard to earn a little dollar, and the moment that you get it, it is through. So many are frustrated in this system, searching for the jobs but cannot find them. Family dissolving so frequent because the husbands can't maintain the wives or children. Brother, to survive in this system, don't you take the worldly things to make a problem. To succeed in this life, you'll need some patience, because the riches of the world don't come as easy as you think. So you can solve them, brother, don't give up. You in this system, financial problems, you can find them, sister, don't give up. No. Papu say, don't you give up, brother. Papu. Chip. Why. Papu, let me say, Dominica. Chip. C'est pour palager. Non. C'est pour nous, chébé. C'est pour palager. Non. C'est pour nous, chébé. Puis je dis, moi, mais on passe à ce de me qu'aimer, I love you. Depuis où qu'à vivre, je suis obligé de venir pour, eh bien. Après qu'on aille voler, mi c'est. Après qu'on fait quoi, mi c'est. Depuis qu'on fait bien aller la terre. Bon, t'es obligé de voir un monde pour aider. Monde qui est à l'hôpital, qui a souffert. Monde qui perd du travail, au moins dit. Tout le monde corona défoncé. Monde qui a croyé pour manger. Don't you give up, brother. Don't you give up. Ouais, fais ça, esprit. Wadix. No. Wadix say you had enough, you know. What you say, Wadix? Give me one more. Play it for God to you. Yeah, mama. C'est faux, moi, pour chaque oui. Child abuse, you know. You know all this one, yeah. Pay special attention to this one. You know, a lot of people, you know, this child abuse is just said over the media and passed through one ears, you know. People wonder why this world has changed, blaming the problems on the young these days. I say it's time we all should stop and think, if we don't guide the children, what will the children be? Oh, so much hurt because the little ones, instead of helping them, we kick them out. We must listen to the life they live by knowing their history. We'll know why they grieve. Oh, ouvrez la porte, monsieur. Zafa ka pleure. Aujourd'hui, qu'a fait tu ma piste, yo t'es abusé. Sa maman maltraité. Avec papa quitté. On l'a dit, yo perdu confiance. Et puis pas ni respect. Piste, yo t'es abusé. La voyons zafa méchanceté. Ça c'est abusé. Oi. We're gonna take child abuse serious, you know. This is happening everywhere in the world. But we are in Dominica, we gotta pay close attention to this one. Child abuse, you know. When you rape and molest a little child, they may not be able to regain their life. It depends on the care they get inside, but some parents sleep and some accept the bribes. Oh, it's not an easy task to bear the shame. Some children act wild and others lose their brain. We act while young, they are chosen. But do we find out what's happening inside? Ouvrez la porte, monsieur. Jeunes affaires kakouye. Olodi yo ka fait trol ma pisse yo te abusé. Sa papa yo fouillé. Avec mon oncle servi. Olodi yo perdu confiance. C'est pour chi. Pisse yo te abusé. Belle jeunes affaires pour caf toucher. Ça c'est abusé. Oi. Chip. Pas fait yo ça, monsieur. Non. What est-ce que vous savez, c'est vous savez? chip, 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 chip. Child abuse, you know. You gotta respect the children. I always love that song, you know. But we doesn't give much emphasis on child abuse. Listen. Child abuse is not a simple act. It does real damage to the children's heart. Some of them do not focus at school. Some take marijuana or coke to keep them cool. That is the burden the society face, as we tend to neglect the upcoming race. We must stand now to solve this social ill. Stop abuse the children. Let's help them to heal. Ouve la porte, monsieur. Jeunes enfants, on dit yo ka fait chol ma pisiote. Sa famille n'inglete, quitte yo sa manger. On dit yo perdu confiance, c'est pour chi yo pas mêlé. Pis yo ke abusé. Oh, yo, yo, yo. Ça c'est abusé. Ça c'est abusé. Belle jeune zafa pour qu'à toucher. Ça c'est abusé. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Wrap it up, you know. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, White Fairy. How you feel tonight? Somebody say Irie, what the others say? Wonderful. Yes, it really is a beautiful thing that we're having here tonight. And I was about reading the program for the following panel discussion, but I think you don't want to do it, Wadix? Yes, I think Wadix is the best person to do it, and on account of everything that he's doing, I expect you to give him a big round of applause.
Also, just want to say good night. Also, Cecil Joseph, the manager, wants to ask a couple questions. So I guess after, if anyone may want to ask us a couple questions, because we have been there for a while. Just want to thank everyone for understanding how important the Cadence Lypso genre is. Jamaica understands how important reggae is. Trinidad understands what soca is to them. The Haitians, the French Antilles understand what zouk means to them. What has happened to us? We need to finally understand what our music means to us. On the World Creole Music Festival, there's something called Musique à nous. Translate that for me, Ophelia.
Our music.
Our music. We invite the world to come to Dominica in our space, but then our music, we need to get it out there. First, we have to appreciate it. We have to love it. The DJs have to play it. Yes, we have to play other music, but like Bells Combo Mike Morrow said, or Tony Valmo the late said, nous savons d'autres musique, mais c'est faut nous pas oublier musique à nous. We can like all other genres, but we should never forget our music. And that's why we try to document everything, and DBS Radio is a major partner in doing that as we celebrate our 50th anniversary. So give DBS Radio a round of applause for me, please. And all our partners, they have actually given us over $10,000 worth of advertising. So our promotions will be going out, and we expect more, the panel discussion. We have to play our part, every one of us. We have to teach our children. If we don't, it will be on us. It will be on us. That's why I brought my daughter here, to make sure she understands everything about Cadence Lypso. If we don't teach our children, the onus will be on us. We will be failing our children. If you don't teach your children etiquette, you expect them to be mal cassé. If you don't teach your children about your culture, then they will be lost in the wilderness. they will go for the fast food music. When I listen to Greg's and Team and Gordon, we must big up. I know we did it earlier on, but this is a serious Dominican, Mr. Gordon Henderson. I don't think we have shown the amount of appreciation we showed for this man. This is a serious Dominican. Gordon calls me 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, because that is daybreak in Paris. Wadix, we need to do this, we need to do that, because he's passionate about Dominica, this rock. He came here several years ago and invested, and what we did, we know, that's another story. Once again, he's one of the pillars behind this project. We are looking forward to the private sector taking this and run with it, do some branding. We heard of Sobers at this man. You see this brother? You see this brother? And I really wish one of those days we will put him in the right place. Because when we have talent like this brother, we have to propel him, we have to elevate him. You see, Sobers Esprit. And I've been fortunate to have worked with this brother for several years. We have known since the current expression. And that is many moons ago. But when come for knowing, when come for observing, when come for experiencing the arts and culture, Dublin, no care what Dominican whatever event you have in Dublin is there. Bohemian is there to support. We have to big up those people. We have to big up our people. That stigma of we continue to like other things before ours, somewhere we have to break it. We have to try our best. We are part of CARICOM, the Trinidadians like their thing. If you go to Barbados, there is nothing better than anything Bajan can cook. As a matter of fact, they will tell you they're more Creole than us. Our Bajan will tell you they're more Creole than us. Because Barbados and Bajans believe they are the greatest in the world. What about us? I believe Cadence Lypso is truly one of the greatest genre ever. The musicality, the lyrics, several different moods, the topics explored, from slavery to love to all kind of paplamus, kakule koglodus. This is genius. This is poetry at its finest. A Dominican. Some have gone to the wild beyond. We still have our Mama Creole, our Papa Creole, and several uncles and Auntie Creole. Let's embrace them because we have T-Moon Creole around us, and you heard them. We have lots of talent. Let us elevate them. Let us provide the space for the Webbs and this genius gospel singer. We have the little man with so much talent. Let us provide the opportunity. Let us embrace our music. If we don't, one of those days we'll regret it. Next week we go in the house of Dion Henderson, the son of Gordon Henderson. It will be like a panel discussion with a cocktail atmosphere, different. And Gregory Rabes again will be dealing with the subject, Cadence Lypso songwriting. And he will dissect that. One of the early members of DBS radio team, Durand, used to be the program director once. How instrumental was DBS radio to Cadence Lypso music? DBS was launched in 1971. My babes, take a little water for your daddy. And Cadence Lypso around 1973, 1974. So Team Durand will be exploring this topic. Another positive writer. And I want to take some time. He's not there, but he was there earlier. Ian Jackson. Ian Jackson penned everything cultural in Dominica. And he told me once, 1,600 articles on culture. 1,600 articles on culture. I mean, this is remarkable. That is dedication, that is sacrifice to educate us. But our problem is we do not like to read. And we are raising our children with the bad habit of not reading. That's why we have to really thank DBS Radio for the reading competition. We prefer to buy all kind of games for our children. Our children spend all kind of hours on games. We refuse to teach them about what's Dominican our culture. And I'm happy that we have people like Mr. Dublin. We must. And I'm happy also that we have young Henderson who plans to use Cadence Lypso to teach children to speak Creole. Because our history lessons, so much talk about the revolutionary years in the 70s. Puyokoko, Shive. Because there was a dread act and this genius from South City chronicled what took place in Dominica in the 70s. And that's what's about, that's what is Cadence Lypso. When you hear Trio and you do party, there's a historic lesson in this particular song where we were open, as a matter of fact, after the Second World War. There were most of the people in Guadeloupe, and in particular in Guadeloupe, they were starving. And guess what? They come to Dominica, we open our arms to them. And the tray you hear Gordon talking about, this tray mouton, tray, all kind of animals to feed our French neighbors. So yes, we party on the tray, they say it's the first bouillon. But there's a lesson in the song. That is what Cadence Lypso is about. So Ian Jackson will be dealing with the influence of Cadence Lypso on soca, and let no Trinidadian tell you soca, Cadence had no influence on soca. When we know better, sobers. We know much better. Also Zouk and other genres. Then we have a Haitian Arrivere and the impact on the Haitian population. And I want to say quickly, Cadence Lypso was influenced by Haitian Comp Cadence Rampa or Compa Direct. The interesting thing is most of the bands were combos. And when Exile One went to tour to Haiti, they dominated every community, every dance hall. All the bands, including the great Taboo Combo, run and get brass. They ran to get brass because Exile One influenced them. So despite the fact, yes, their music is part of the foundation of our music, but yes, the Cadence was so strong. It re-influenced the same music that influenced it. So we have Henri Verret, and he'll be dealing with the Haitian experience and how Cadence Lypso influenced the Haitian population. And the moderator will be another sensational Madame or Dame Creole, Delia Coffee. So we feel like if you have time, if McMurray is not waiting on you, you can ask a few questions. But I really want to thank everyone. Mr. Pembo, I know you with Swinging Stars on the keyboards. I'm not sure which other band you played for, but I know you're a master musician. I want to thank you for coming. The panelists, I want to really thank you. Because you see these guys are what you call patriotic Dominican. They have given their all to Dominica. I really wish before Sobers die, he will get something big, a ministry or something. Because he have it. But then that is for the authorities to decide. But I believe this man can play a major part in our development, especially the culture and the tourism. It's a blend. Look at Go Wash Tuzo, as a matter of fact, he have a latest. Continuing to write. He has a matter of fact, it's recorded, and we'll be launching it on the 30th. And we all know of Tim Durand. He hardly looked like a musician, but believe it or not, has penned several calypsos apart from Naked Fit. And you may not know about Naked Fit, but Naked Fit was a band of feeling that give Swinging Stars their run for their money. When I stole away and go and see Swinging, I'm Naked Fit in St. Gerard's Hall. You can remember that, Tim? St. Gerard's Hall. When I used to play dance there, little boy. God, yes. Don't worry about story. Story does as well. You still really go see Moon and see Bells too. But then the music was so much in us then. We would tell our parents that we go in night study. And we would find ourselves in Simon in Sunday school. So if you have any questions, I will leave the mic to the host. And let us continue to come, madam. Let us continue to cherish this lady for the work that she has done. There is nowhere you can go in the French Antilles and you will not hear the name Ophelia. Thank you, Ophelia, pour tout ça vous fait pour nous. Bisous. Well, Mark not there.
Thank you so very much, Wadix. And, I'll tell him again on your behalf. Wadix, thank you. Continue with that energy and the bigness with which you do things, The only panel discussion that I have seen where we have had music was when the Council on Aging did it a few weeks ago. But Wadix knows how to big up something. So let's give him another round of applause. Okay, 1 question, 2 questions. How many you have, Cecile? You have a book?
Just 2 questions, but before I make the 2 questions, I must give a few observations. I think it's important. Okay. Historically, I remember I went to Martinique, and I wish God was on the screen. I went to Martinique, and a few years ago, while being the mayor of the city of Roseau, and in a place they call Robert, there was a concert held by the Exile One, and it was most unbelievable for me as a Dominican, a proud moment for me as a Dominican, to literally see people storming at each other. They normally use the word bouteillage. Go bouteillage. And it was really unbelievable that having to drive from La Matière to get to Robert, normally on the highway it would take you about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But that day it took me almost 2 hours to get into that place. And just for people to see Gordon Henderson. And when the name Gordon Henderson was mentioned on the microphone, it was unbelievable to hear the screams. And so I am proud to be a Dominican and to be associated with Gordon Henderson. When we got to the hotel, it was unbelievable to see the number of people that were actually waiting to see Gordon Henderson to sign autographs. So we have someone in our midst. Let us not wait like what we saw this week. When you die, people want to recognize you. Today, there's no better word to describe Patrick John when he was alive that we all didn't know the name Patrick John. And let us stop being hypocrites and let's really do what we have to do as a people. And so I want to recommend that Gordon Henderson name be placed on somewhere where we can, as a people, know years to come. We are now building or renovating our theater house. Let us name that after Gordon Henderson. Gordon is from Portsmouth. Let us get some landmark. Born in Roseau, but raised in Portsmouth. Let us get a landmark in Portsmouth to name after Gordon Henderson. Also, too, many of us may not be aware that Jocelyn Bewa started with us. At the age of 16 years, when Jocelyn told me that, it took Fitzroy Williams to take her at the age of 16, 17 to bring her to the first gig to play it back up. And today, see who Jocelyn Bewa is. All because Fitzroy Williams sourced a singer in her. And now she's one of the, if not the leading female vocalists in the French territories. I'm not so sure who follows next. And so we have made musicians. I remembered when Kassav was supposed to be established, they came first to Dominica to try to get their vocalists in the person of Linford John, right, Wadix? Right, Ophelia? Yeah. They came right here to get Linford John. But Linford had to get his papers to go to the United States and then turn down the offer. That's because we have great talent. And I feel that the name Linford John should be placed somewhere in Salisbury, a park, a center, something to be named after Linford John. Midnight Groovers, I was in England a few years ago in Wembley, and I saw Chubby and the Midnight Groovers storm a hall. And I happened to have brought in a friend with me, and that friend, actually, she's from Africa. And I didn't tell her she was going to come to a Dominica jam. And she says to me, where did you get to know that African band? I say, in a part of Africa called Dominica. And the second you laughed, she laughed. Because she knew that I was from Dominica. So she asked me if I'm from Africa. I said, yes, my descendants are, but my country is Dominica, and that group that you are actually dancing on is actually from the Caribbean in Dominica, not from Africa. And I believe, too, that Chubby and the Midnight Groovers in Granby can be given some kind of recognition in the community of Granby so that children later on, while today we are calling them the Granby, the capital city, but it is important tomorrow that people can know why we call Granby the capital city. I also believe that Jeff Joe, culture city. Yeah, sorry about that. Jeff Joe, we have been proud about Jeff Joe. Why can't we ourselves name the park where Jeff Joe played quite a lot of cricket himself in St. Joseph, a landmark in St. Joseph, as soon as you enter, after the man Jeff Joseph. Bells Combo from Maho. Why can't we not get somewhere in Maho that we can really feel the music of Bells Combo and Ophelia? I mean, you're from La Pointe. Why can't we not take the Poe playing field and name after Ophelia? And I'm calling on people like my good friend, Football Association President Glenn Etienne, to take that charge to name the football field in Poe after Ophelia. Now, team, I want to ask you a question. You made mention earlier on of Dominicans embrace Cadence music in the 70s. I have a little doubt about it. That's a time when I raised as a young boy, observing things around me. And many a times, people get confused between the word Creole and Cadence because they mesh Creole with Cadence. And so my parents and even the elites and those who worked in the system did not want to hear the language Creole. And so it made it even difficult to even sometimes, somehow, play music on the radio, which you were program director at the time. Because I just want to also ask the second question, and that of Ophelia. You made mention of the Ophelia song being recognized in Guadeloupe as a song that dealt with the issues of oppression, words to that effect. But we know, I'm not so sure if you're program director, was Tim program director at the time? In 1978? You were not Tim? You were out of state. But we know that in 1978, when the song of Ophelia, I, Dominique, was banned on DBS radio. And that is important. So while you might say that in those days that the Cadence music was appreciated by many, I have my little doubt about it. Because I did not see the Cadence music while those of us who were struggling guys, who were getting our black consciousness, some guys who maybe smoked their marijuana, some guys who were on the blocks, would maybe appreciate that type of music because it was talking about black consciousness and black liberation, but on a greater scale to include our parents, did not accept the Cadence music. And that's the reason why I believe that many of the bands did not see it fit to remain in Dominica and survive in the outside world. Thank you very much.
So you asked a question?
2 questions.
Well, who's supposed to answer? You honest? I can tell you though that I Dominic was banned in 75.
Well, Cecil, I mean, I respect your perspective, you know, but I'm speaking from the standpoint of someone who actually was involved in promoting the music, who worked at the radio station. We had absolutely no difficulty, you know, in playing Cadence Lypso music on the radio at the time. We had no, I do not recall having any pushback from the populace. So if, I mean, I am not suggesting that there may not have been some people who didn't like the music or perhaps didn't like it because the main language used, you know, was Creole, but I do not recall that being an issue at all in promoting the music. As I told you, I personally hosted a program called Genesis and Beyond, and that was one of the most popular programs on DBS at the time. The music was played extensively throughout the country. Every dance you went to, every party, every event, there would be Cadence Lypso music. So I am not suggesting that as a boy you might not have experienced situations where people didn't want, or your elders didn't want the music to be played. I don't know. But from my own perspective, we didn't have that kind of pushback or resistance to playing Cadence Lypso music then.
Okay, does that help? Cecil, he dealt with everything? Yes, but I didn't want to talk about that now. But because Gordon kind of helped me understand why that song was banned. It's because people were saying it wasn't patriotic. I think because they didn't understand the meaning of the word. Oh, I can't say more. Honestly, I can't say more. I'll talk to you about it. But now, Dominic, is it? I mean, people sometimes forget my name, but they know that's the lady who sings Dominic. So I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with the fact that the music has evolved and it has been accepted, but we have to recognize something that was created outside of Dominica. You know, and it took us a while before. I think I got my Maracas Door Award in 1981. And it's after that I found that Dominicans were beginning to say, she is ours, you know. That is when they started really embracing Chanson d'Amour, which came from Gordon, and all of the other songs that helped me to get that Maracas Door. I used to feel bad that I got an award outside of Dominica before I got one inside. But, you know, you could interpret that as maybe people not embracing the genre. Yes, and I don't want to talk about the other blues I got, but DA is DA, and I love it. Or you're not moving me. We're wrapping up? Okay. Do we need 1 minute from each of our panelists? Sobers, I leave you for last, or I ask you first? I'll leave you for last. So Gregory, if you can wrap up for us, please. 1 minute.
All right, wrapping up. A paper bag or what? It was a very enjoyable discussion tonight, very insightful, you know. And tonight is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, all the panelists coming up, next week in my own presentation when I will be dissecting the music. I guess some of those issues will come up again in terms of the ideas, the topics, the themes, and some of the problems and issues that Ophelia is raising. And we see in all of this, we have to understand the context. So let's talk about the social, political, and cultural context of the 70s. And part of that context was a very deep intolerance by the political elite of criticism. And that was the fundamental reason it caused the conflagration in the 70s in Dominica. So Ophelia was a victim of that. I too was a victim of that sort of censorship, you might call it, you know. But that is, so as the society evolves, the dynamic changes, you see. So the music reflects this changing dynamics in the society. So we will continue to explore that in the other panels coming up. Merci un pile again, merci un Shai, merci un lot.
Thank you. Kim, you want to say anything else? Okay, so Buzz.
No, well, first of all, I just want to say that tonight we really had a tremendous conversation, or beginning to have a conversation that is important for us as a people and trying to shape a music culture going forward. Because I don't think that we should really stop on what happened in the 70s and 80s. I think we need to go beyond that and to see where we're going to take this brigade to, you know. I think that is what is important. If we stick to what happened in the 70s, I don't think that will do us any good. What we're doing is we're celebrating that period, but we also want to look at how we can move forward. And as Gregory said, every society, as a society evolves, as a society grows, there are internal contradictions. There are forces that are fighting and struggling. So we had those struggles happening. So there was obviously there was a pocket of people that was resistant not only to Cadence Lypso, but to folk culture, to dance and other things. But the fact is, the 70s and the 80s, the majority of the people of Dominica embraced the culture and they celebrated the culture. I think that's what is important. That is what is still important. But we can go beyond that. We need to go much beyond that to see how we can embrace it further, how we can validate those things that make us unique as Dominicans and to go outside for validation. That's what we've been doing for too long, you know. So we need to get our act together and let's rise up. That's what I think I wanted to say.
So it leaves me to ask you to give a round of applause one more time to all our panelists. And if you can add one to all, for all our performers. Fantastic. Fantastic, all of you. And Wadix, you brought it together. So we want to thank you in a very special way. Yes, and our technician. I was asked to thank you. You are a musician as well, and we know about your prowess as far as that goes. We want to thank you. Thank you so much. Multi-Solutions, Inc. I was trying to remember, you know. And if you allow me to thank myself, let me hear the round of applause for me. And let us give one final round of applause for those who are not applauding. I want to thank you so very much, all of you, and it is my responsibility to ask you to go home straight. No chimé conchi. Be very careful on the road, and we'll see you next time. God bless you. Play a cadence in your car. Bye-bye.
Well, we have just seen the end of exactly 3 hours of discussion, panel discussion, during the Cadence Lypso month, how it all began. First part of the panel discussions held tonight at the at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Emsall Road. Creole Heartbeat presented to us another wonderful night of discussion where we heard Gordon Henderson, the father of the Cadence music, on how Calypso began by sheer accident 800 kilometers from Dominica. That's what he spoke about, and we heard Gordon giving his experience as to they doing what they had to do in France. We also heard from Tim Durand, who dealt on the issue of how did Cadence Lypso grow from the night in France to become Dominican expression, and the man Tim Durand gave a good account of his presentation, where he indicated quite clearly of quite a lot of the information that was required to be heard about Cadence and its impact on Dominica, and how it continued to create that kind of wave for Dominicans. He mentioned that Gordon Henderson had to promote read and write French and speak French, really, to take full advantage of the French markets, and where many other Dominicans were able to come to the French countries of Martinique and Guadeloupe to ensure that they get the kind of prominence that was required. And he also made mention of the summer times that they used to have in the French countries, where from besides Monday, every day they would have had a dance, and Tim gave a good account of his discussion tonight. And we also heard from Daniel Bitis from Martinique, who spoke on the impact of Calypso in the French Antilles. Also, we heard from Gregory Rabes, spoke the name the groups and artists who joined and consolidated the Cadence Lypso movement. He made mention of all of the various groups, Blee Blood, Mammoth, Mantra. I spoke about Exile One, Gramax, that of Liquid Eyes, and just name all of the groups. The Midnight Groovers. He also made mention of the solo artists like Ophelia, Janet Azuz, just to name a few tonight. It was really, to me, a brilliant presentation done by the man Rabes, who would, I'm sure, for the listeners who may not have been aware of the kind of fusion that actually came through Dominica into the French territories in the early 70s into the 80s. And tonight, the man Gregory Rabes did give a real story of all of the various groups. So Dominicans or listeners who were not totally aware of some of the groups tonight got to find out